Good afternoon, everyone. Snowfall warning, another foot of snow at Newfoundland. When I saw these pictures, I was astounded. This is almost June and this much snow is still coming down. Blizzard conditions, below freezing temperatures, and it went from what you see above in the grassy spring back into winter with another foot of snow. Now, this is not just the first time this happened in this area. We can go back to 2017, 2016, 2015, and see that St. John's and Newfoundland, this area, Gander, is definitely showing a pattern of cooling. Speaking of which, the Southern Hemisphere is leading the Northern Hemisphere by one season, entering into the grand solar minimum, and I ask you to look at the southern continents, blue, blue, blue. But I don't really understand why it's above normal temperatures in Antarctica, because when I'm looking at Null School, it's showing minus 53 degrees Celsius. And you really need to ask yourself now at this point, is this truly the intensification of the new eddy grand solar minimum that is going to reset our societies? And this video is brought to you by TrueLeafMarket.com, heirloom and organic seeds for any grow zone on our planet. All of tonight's links to the stories are in the description box below, as well as TrueLeafMarket.com. As well as a link to True Leaf Market. Click that. You can use the code ADAPT2030. Now, when you get snowfall warnings up to a foot of snow and more with blowing winds into the blizzard condition range a week before June, even if it's in Canada, that's incredibly rare and unusual. Let's take a look here. I want to show you a bunch of images as well as what the locals are saying about the conditions up there. An enormous amount of images up on Twitter if you want to do your own research going forward from this point. As I said, everything's linked in the description box below. But when I saw images like this coming out of Gander Airport, shocking. I didn't really expect to see this much snow on the ground when I originally started looking at this report. And then when I start to see blowing winds at this velocity here, interesting to say the least. I mean, this puts it right back into winter conditions back in what, January, February? Look at the amount of snow that is coming down. And for those of you in the States, 30 centimeters is approximately a foot. But this is well over a foot, especially where you're seeing in the drifts here. Locals putting back on the winter garments. And here's some quotes, prompting dismay and disbelief. It's minus 2°C, and remember, 0 degrees Celsius is 32 Fahrenheit, so we're looking at around 28 degrees Fahrenheit or so. Another foot plus of snow. What they're talking about here was back in 1974, the latest snow they had was June 9th in 1974. So I'm going to bring you here to the sunspot record again. In 1970s, a little bit on the left side there, and you can see the descent on the sunspot count coming into 1974. Well, we're way on the right side of the chart over here in time coming in 2018. We've just dropped off a cliff on sunspot activity. Solar cycle ending early, baffling those except John Casey who put out the forecast. Let's take a look at unprecedented ice conditions in Newfoundland. Oh wait, that was in April 2017. They had exceptionally deep ice, 4 feet thick in some places. Now let's go back in time, and I want to show you, if you're looking for information on where this is going to, shall we say, continue to show patterns of the same and intensity, this is an exact perfect example for you to look at. So if it's happening this year in 2018, then we go back, this is off Robert Felix's site, iceagenow.info, excellent resource as well. Record snowfall bearing Newfoundland, houses up to their roofs, when's that? April 5th. Record snowfall again. Record cold in Gander, exact same spot, October 20th, 2016. Record low temperatures, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Prince Edward Island, October 3rd, 2016, and it just keeps rolling back in time. Newfoundland, earliest autumn snowfall ever, and what we're seeing right now is possibly one of the latest snowfalls on record in terms of depths. It could actually break the record this time. They're still waiting for the storm to stop, which it won't for the next 2 days. You got to realize there's another day on tap of snow coming down. And even back March 19th in 2015, the center there, I highlighted in blue. That is so important. It beat the previous record by almost 19 inches. You got to realize you had a record and then it was broken, but it wasn't just broken, it was broken by 19 inches. And it just keeps going on for 13 more pages of entries. I only went for the first 2 pages here to draw these stories for you. This is an exact perfect example of a hotspot, and if you can start to map these out like Christian, Ice Age Farmer, has been doing on his crop loss map, you can absolutely pinpoint where the losses are going to intensify. It's not magic, it's doing a bunch of research. It takes many hours to do these videos, and it takes so much research time to compile all this data. I'm so glad it's in my brain so I can share it with you. One of my favorite photos from this collage here, the day before, nice spring, a little bit rainy, green lawn, and then the next day, a foot of snow. Also, the depths people are still clearing out. This is going to be added to, please remember that. And I was ready for a picnic out in the spring garden, weren't you? Yeah, well, we'll have to shovel the snow off the table and the chairs, I guess. And look how deep this is. Must have been drifting and blowing in this person's window. And on their deck there, that's really deep, much deeper than a foot. Not much better on the coastal areas. More snow, ice on the way. Neighborhoods. Newfoundland and Labrador, it's not exclusively in one tiny little city. It is encompassing pretty much the entire area, and you'll start to see more news coming out of this. And I just want you to take a look at the landscape of really how all-encompassing this storm is. I'd like to see it from the satellite view once it finishes, because it'll have a direct mark. And I mean, literally 2 feet to the left, it'll be totally bone dry, but right where it is, it'll be feet deep. And I really want to see these satellite images coming out after the snows. 32 centimeters, already going past a foot. Now you have to really wonder with this intensifying eddy grand solar minimum. That's the term, the name for the new grand solar minimum that we're entering. The most famous is the Maunder minimum, 1640 or so. The Dalton minimum, early 1800s, and now we're into the Eddy minimum. Jack Eddy, named after him. John Casey, also the solar forecaster that I am paying attention to because he has been the most correct with the forecasts so far. This is coming from the Pulkovo Observatory in Russia with Dr. Abutamatov. As we can see, solar activity is declining and declining and declining, at least for the next 30 years, according to their research. And here we are, exceptional snows. Now, jumping down to the southern oceans, I've been saying time and time again, as well as others, that the southern hemisphere is leading the northern hemisphere by 1 season. So we're taking a look at what's happening down there to determine what will happen up here in the northern hemisphere during the next season. And this is from Weatherbell. This is the 2-meter temperature anomaly map, and it's covering 3 weeks here in May. From May 1st to May 24th. Now notice where the continents are in the southern hemisphere. Blue, 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 and blue, which means below normal temperatures. They're showing excessive cooling compared to the rest of the planet. But when we're up in North America, look exactly where the snowstorms are happening today. That's in that green area north of New York. You got to go up into the Canadian Maritimes, Newfoundland, Prince Edward Island, St. John's, that whole area up there. And then you look at Greenland as well, below normal temperatures. But wait, I thought it was melting. But Greenland with below normal temperatures. And then we got the southern oceans as well. Now, one thing for me that stood out, and I said, well, this, I don't know if I really agree with the chart, but Weatherbell, I find and think they are one of the best sources out on the net. But these heating in the poles, so I just went over to Null School to see what the temperatures were. Is it really above normal down there? It's 53.7 degrees Celsius where they're showing warmth. So I don't know how much above or below normal 53 is, because if it's 53 degrees Celsius below zero, and that's 3 degrees warmer than average, and there's really not that many temperature stations down there around Antarctica anyway. I think there's only 207 or 208 working stations down there to give you the temperatures for the entire continent, plus the periphery of all the oceans. But then again, I've been told, hey, you can't rely on satellite data to make any your forecast for the grand solar minimum or talk about temperature changes on the planet with satellites because they're not accurate and it's up in the atmosphere and blah, 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 blah. That's the only way we could possibly get these measurements on temperature, unless they're trying to say the entire continent of 208 temperature stations gives you the detailed temperatures for this continent. That's as large as any continent on our own planet. You got to be kidding me. You telling me 208 temperature stations across North America is going to give you the temperature averages for that? Doesn't make sense. Nor Europe, nor Asia, nor South America, nor Africa. Imagine 208 temperature stations in Africa to get a median. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. Things are definitely changing, and we're looking for an amplification starting in June and July to the end of the year anyway. Perhaps this is the first of the amplifications. And as I said, your head is going to spin as we get into these last 6 months of 2018. And your reality is pretty much going to bend in 2019. And by 2020, it'll actually shatter into something different as the society reset button's been pushed.